This is Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Pushing you to year-on-year progression. With your host, Ross McKinley.
Yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Special guest today, Alex. Met him very long ago, back in the legendary Edge gym. He's recently competed. He's now an online coach, and I thought he'd be a fantastic guest for today. Alex, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure. Always followed you since the days of living in sunny Leeds and training at Edge, where all we did was squat and deadlift. But it got us some muscle, yeah.
Yeah, it was tough times. We never had a leg extension in that gym. For anyone that wondered, we literally just squatted. It was very basic. But we both got big legs, so it
primal. And we got a good squat form as well.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about training a lot. But actually, Alex, if you go and look at his Instagram, is a very tall lad, and he still has big legs. So for anyone out there who's over 6 foot and got skinny legs, go and check out Alex's stuff, because he squats full range. He squats just as deep as me. And he's got that leg growth there. So I like to think that I contribute to that by not getting a leg extension at Edge back in the day. So Alex, for the people watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, introduce yourself. Give a rundown of who you are and why you're here.
So I am Alex Sparks. So I am the head coach at Project Sparks, which is an online coaching kind of service. We work predominantly with males, helping them kind of either grow some muscle, actually natural lads as well. I make sure it's natural because I'm quite adamant about that. Natural lads to grow muscle, and most of the time kind of tidy up their physique and optimize things, because I find a lot of lads just kind of spin their wheels in the gym. They just go in, they're on Instagram scrolling, and I feel like that is just an absolute waste of time. And I find that with most of them, if they actually concentrate and double down on the things that work, they get much better results for the actual time they spend in the gym, and then they can go and do whatever else they want to do as well, and just become a lot more efficient in it. But yeah, had a bit of a kind of strange route into becoming an online coach, but I'm sure we're going to talk about that later on in the podcast.
Awesome. What made you, the question I always ask everyone at the beginning, particularly the coaches, mate, is kind of what made you want to help, particularly natural lads, as you mentioned there, and kind of get into coaching? What's your why, if you like?
I mean, like, it's the classic one, like, you know, sport, got injured, fell in love with it. Like when I was 15, I was just in the gym, and I was that complete bro. I was just like, right, chest Mondays, back Tuesdays, legs, no days off, protein powder 5 times a day. And as much as I hate looking at that now, like I love that. Like, and I still love being like in the gym training. And I have, albeit for some of the time when I was younger, done other things. Like I've always been pulled back to fitness, and I've always read, and I've always looked at kind of the research and stuff. And it got to a point in my life where I was just kind of like, can I resist this pull factor in my life that keeps pulling me back to this main central core of training, of nutrition? And it got to a point and I was just like, do you know what? I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm just going to roll with it. And it's probably one of the best decisions of my life, to be fair. And now I can kind of just literally do what I love every day. And it's just great. Right.
Yeah. It's the best, isn't it? It's good. We're getting
it's
like
fun,
this.
Yeah.
This is work. Right, the first
half 9 on a Friday, just
exactly.
around.
The first thing I want to talk about, bro, and you might be able to see Alex's face is still looking very, very lean. You've recently competed. So what I wanted to talk about was, we obviously both work with men, getting them in sick shape. They get leaner, they get shredded, whether it's the 28-day challenge and the 12 weeks, and then I see what I do. You're coaching. What would you say, what you learned from competing, first and foremost, because there might be some lads who are listening who are thinking about it, but what would you say the main differences are between working with us maybe to get in shape for a holiday, a wedding, a photo shoot, versus competing?
But the main thing I've realised, and I've done like some posts on it on social media and stuff and for my email list, is like there's levels to this. There's levels to fat loss, and arguably putting yourself in some Speedos with a tan on is the top level. And with this top tier, there are kind of there's more sacrifices, and there'll be different levels of commitment that if you're at the top of the tier, whether you're at the bottom. So I'd say, like, if you're getting on stage, it's every minute of every day. Like, there's not much bandwidth for you to be doing much else. And there's not that time for you to be able to, like, pop out with your girlfriend for, like, that Nando's, or go to the pub with your mates and have that kind of, I don't know, half a beer. What do people drink nowadays? I don't drink. So you need to know where you sit on this kind of spectrum, because if you're at the bottom and you're just trying to lose like 4 or 5 kilograms, you can kind of have a little bit more flexibility with what you're doing. But when there's a goal date and you're going to be judged on what you are, well, basically the level of body fat that you're going to bring, you don't really have that opportunity. And likewise, with the mentality that you bring to it, do you want to be leaving that on the table? Do you want to be on stage and be like, I'm not in condition. I went out for a Nando's 6 weeks out, or I let myself slip on my diet for 4 weeks out. Like, you need to know what you are signing up for and be realistic with that, because if you're signing up to something and you're not fully in it, I think you're just doing yourself a disservice and you're lying to yourself. Like, so for the minute said I was going to compete, I decided quite late in the process. That was it. Like, everything else went out the window and I just went tunnel vision for that show day. And arguably I was probably the most conditioned on stage. Whether that helped me, I don't know, but I was as conditioned as I've ever been, and really kind of focused on that, because I knew, being the tallest in the category, I was going to never compete with the bigger, shorter guys. So I had to kind of come in with striated glutes and hamstrings. But I don't know what you think about that, because obviously you've competed before. A long time ago, mate. It seemed to have drifted away from it.
I've done seven shows. So I've done quite a lot when I was younger. I started competing to go back in time, if you like. I competed when I was 21, so I was probably 4. I wouldn't say too young, but I think I definitely could have been a lot bigger.
Whippersnapper, mate. Young whippersnapper.
I was about 79, 76 kilos, I think, my first show. And mind you, I was shredded. And then I competed as late as 25. But when I competed at 25, to be honest, I was just doing it for business. I competed at body power. I used to always pick the biggest shows. And it was good to go against the best people. But by the end, I was doing it for more the content and that's the difference. What I wanted to say there, what Alex is saying, is understand why you're doing it, because there'll be someone like Alex, or there'll be someone else in your class who goes all in 100% of the time. And at the end, why I stopped was I realized that actually I wasn't really prepared to do that anymore, like I was my first show. My first show, if I had a little bit too much of a heaped spoon of peanut butter, I felt like I cheated on my diet. I think I dieted. Go out for an extra walk. Yeah, I think I dieted for 180 days. I didn't like that. I done consecutive shows when I first started competing, which again probably wasn't a good idea, but I prepped myself, and I learned a lot from it. But what I wanted to touch on there, which I think is brilliant, is understanding that when you see these results on social media, I think particularly the amount of results that I churn out, sometimes people do this where they compare themselves to other people, but they don't know the full story. So when we're talking about the levels to fat loss and the levels to a transformation, it pays to ask the coach that you want to work with, or even reach out and get in touch with the person whose transformation it is, what level of effort they would say they were at. And
what's their situation? Like, have they got a job? Have they got kids? Like, do they commute like an hour in London or 2 hours in London? Like, and if that coach can get a result with that person who resonates with you, maybe it's the right decision. And maybe that is an attainable goal for you. Yeah. But like, you can't look at like, when I eventually put up a transformation of me from like peak off season to stage and be like, I want to do that. It's like, the context don't fit. It's never going to align. And then that's when sometimes people feel potentially, what's the word, like disengaged with fitness, that they can't attain results, but it's less they're not picking results that are attainable to their situation in the first place. And that for some lads, like specifically, it can be quite hard, because they're like, it's quite a macho environment, isn't it? It's like if he can do it, I can do it 100%. Like, I'm bigger than him. I can do it. I've got bigger legs. Like, we're all like it, but sometimes it's just not feasible. Cut yourself some slack.
I think a lot of coaches now as well, bodybuilding is such a hardcore thing, or more and more people are getting into it, which is a positive. But I think that also a lot of coaches thrive and use sort of a scarcity mindset to kind of scare people into following their programs. Or, you know, you have these things of like, well, we don't change our training program because you need to adapt and progressive overload and all this, which is true. And for me or you, yes, we could probably stay on the same program for 4, 5, 6 months and enjoy it. But for like the lads I work with, they probably want to change every 6 weeks. And I'm not massively against that, because for them, it's about enjoyment. It's the same with if someone isn't working great with a coach, the coach will kind of say like things like, you know, oh, well, you don't want it enough, or like you haven't worked hard enough. And you do hear these things on social media.
Hustle, mate. Hustle, bro.
Yeah, I think a lot of people now that are, maybe it's not to say that they don't warrant their success, but a lot of what you've got to look at with a lot of results, particularly bodybuilding results or natural bodybuilding, you know, people using PEDs or whatever, is that those people, me or you, for example, as well, love the gym and will be in shape anyway, regardless of any coach that we work with or any program that we followed, because we love it. What's more impressive in what I do and what you do is taking someone who maybe has been in shape before but's never reached that level, or someone who hasn't been in shape before. That's what coaching is. Just cherry picking athletes who absolutely will do anything to be successful and really care about what other people think about the results. I'm not going to say anyone, but most people will be able to get them in shape. It doesn't mean that coach is necessarily brilliant at training your general population, lads, and vice versa.
It's a tricky one, because like most of the coaches you see all over Instagram on your Explore feed are skimming that like top 0.5% of people who just want to wake up at 5, wake up at 5, do their steps, do their cardio, eat their first meal at exactly the same time every day. And what we need to realize is like 99.99% of the population are not like that. So you can't expect necessarily the same level of results as those people. It's not just that this is not like a downer on you not going to get good results, but it's just like there's always that spectrum of where you sit, being realistic with it. And then once you achieve like that realistic result, you never know, you might get that bug, and then you might become that person who loves training and will stay on the same program forever, and then develop as a person within fitness and health and physique, whatever you want to call it. But it's an interesting one.
That's what I try to do with the 28 days, is kind of show lads, look, this is, if you are going to do, maybe it's not a prep level of coaching, but like if you wanted everything right, this is what it would be for 28 days. Give it your all, effectively put your life on hold, go all in. And then at the end, we can see the results. You can see what you could have. But realistically, the 28 days, it's not sustainable. It's not manageable. It's meant to be fucking horrible and consuming. But then at the end, they've got the choice. They can go in the inner circle, which is more of a lifestyle. Or if they really enjoyed that challenge of the 28 days, or they've got a wedding, a holiday, or maybe even they do want to compete, then they go into the 12 weeks. It's having that different levels and understanding sort of where you're starting from, for sure. So you're not comparing yourself with other people, but then also, what are you prepared to do? I always say to people, there's what's optimal, and then there's what's best for you, or what you can do. You more so than me. I think you're probably closer to Chris Law on the spectrum of coaching than what I am. I'm still over at the bro side. But, reading research and knowing what's optimal. But for the normal person, what's optimal isn't always achievable, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't try what's best for them. I think that's what both of us would agree on, for sure.
And what's best for them is sometimes just something. It's just better than nothing. Like it might be 50% optimal, but it will get them a result that will then snowball into them having a really long, because really what we want as coaches for people to be doing this for a long time, with or without us. So if 50% good or 50% optimal at the start is what it takes for them to just do it for the rest of their life, like that's a good intervention as a coach, I think. Like that's what you want. Because otherwise, if you give that person 100% optimal at the start and they've got to eat peanut butter and mince for breakfast, and they drop off and they start smoking and drinking again, like that intervention is not a success. But people, like coaches, don't think about that though, because they're like 12-week programs, like let's get you shredded. You finished now. Do you want to sign up again and pay? No. Okay, bye now. It's like, so this is online coaching is a strange world, and it's new, isn't it? So it's strange, man. Like we're still trying to get our heads around it, and we're old.
Well, this leads me nicely on to the next question. So we've both worked with a lot of coaches ourselves. Obviously, we're both doing it now. But for the people listening, what would you say are the the key points or the things to look out for? What makes a good coach?
Yeah, I've worked with a few. One of them is arguably the best in the industry now, in terms of contest prep. I think the main, that's Callum Braystrick from the Muscle Mentors now. He wasn't the Muscle Mentors when I knew him, but I think communication and that ability to be very objective with data. Obviously, I'm quite data driven, especially when it comes to like training, nutrition, biofeedback. So, but it's all well and good having data. It's how well you portray that to a client. So for me, and one thing that I like work on a lot is to communicate with the client why something might be like something, because for a lot of my clients, it's just numbers they're tracking. They don't necessarily at the start see the point of why they're doing it. But if you can like embed why they're tracking this and the importance of it, and then communicate, right, this is like this because of this, they start to see the links between their lives, because fitness is not just this like echo chamber. Like our stress impacts it, our sleep, our hormones, our digestion, like the list goes on. So if you can communicate the information that you want to portray, I think you'll be the best coach. And the coaches that I've worked with, have communicated very well. And that's something I'm still trying to work on, because you'll probably gather I'm quite erratic when I speak, because I just have a lot of thoughts in my head. So I need to work on kind of my communication in the long run. Obviously, I've got a coach for that. So it's more about kind of communication for me, and being very kind of, we loop back to that word, but kind of optimal. I do like the nickety details, and I do like knowing why I'm doing things. And I do think with any type of client, so with all my Gen Pop clients, you need to be able to explain quite complex points, not necessarily in a simple way, but in a way that is understandable to that person. You need to be able to gauge their understanding of fitness and health and nutrition, and then deliver it on a level that they'll understand. Otherwise, you're just kind of trying to condition them to every other client that you have, which again loops back to that kind of coaching. What is it like? Why we need to be able to kind of meet the client where they're at and nurture them through the process, not necessarily be like, get Janet, well, not Janet, let's pick Dave. He goes to the pub, like he doesn't know anything about fitness, and I start talking about kind of carbohydrates turning into fat. Like he doesn't need to know that. Like, so communication, consistency, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Awesome. I mean, you covered. I mean, something I talk about a lot. I think I kind of come from how long have I been coaching? I mean, Aesthetically trains over 5 years old, so I've been doing online coaching for fucking nearly eight years, I think now. So I've been doing it a long time, and I think the longer I've done it, the less I've spoke about science.
I do find myself, because I agree.
I think it depends on the clients you're working with as well. And I think my men are closer to general population than what yours are, probably closer to competing. So I think we're probably a little bit at different parts of the spectrum. But for me, the big thing is probably learning what motivates people. And then if you can get them motivated, is then when the most motivated is coming up with a plan, because you won't be motivated all year. I always say to people, we've got 365 days in a year. If you're comparing every day to your best day, you're going to be disappointed 364 times. So we need to have, that one day, your best day, you're going to hit it at some point, and treat every day like it could be it, but you're not going to have it all the time. So I think understanding that motivation comes and goes, but it's the plans you put in place and the discipline and the routine, and understanding what your why is behind that, so that when you don't feel as good, you realize that actually these are the things that are still going to get us closer to my goal, regardless of how I feel. And like what you said, I think data supports that. So having lots of touch points and making people understand it helps. Because certainly when a lot of men come to me in the beginning, the maybe's linking their, maybe's not so much their self-worth, but I think a lot of that success is pinned on the scales each week. And also maybe's other specific numbers in the gym, but they don't look at the links between those things, how they look, how they feel, and other factors. So something I see a lot is kind of try to be emotionless in the process. Try to just see the numbers as just numbers, and they're just giving you an indication as to what direction you're headed in. And if we can really get people to buy into that and trust the process as opposed to just external outcomes. The external outcome is the getting on stage, but it's just one day. Like, and the external outcome is maybe finishing the 28-day challenge or finishing the 12 weeks. But those things are just, again, they're just one day. And sometimes you're doing those things for other people. So the biggest thing I've probably changed along the way, and certainly what I'm trying to preach more now, is yes, we need those external goals, external forms of motivation, if you like, extrinsic motivation. But they're typically what gets us started. So I think everyone always has that, whether it's monetary reward, competition, other people's perception of them.
Social pressure.
Yeah, that tends to be why people sign up most of the time. And I understand that, and I work, most of what I do is based on that, particularly in the beginning. But then once I've got people in, then you can have the time to talk about the psychology or the motivation and build an intrinsic motivation, which gets you to the stage, like me or you, where we're just, maybe he's not as fucking far gone as us and, you know, as focused. But if you like, where they're just enjoying the process and learning to love it. And if I can get them anywhere near that stage, I know that they're going to be in better shape in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. And most importantly, like you said, they're going to still be doing it. The intervention is going to be successful because they love it for loving its sake. It becomes a hobby. It becomes a pastime. It becomes something that they look forward to doing each day, which you can get to that point. If anyone listening thinks, fucking hell, I can't think of anything worse than, you know, doing my cardio in the morning or going to the gym or whatever. You might not jump in all in, both feet in straight away, but you can definitely get there one day with the right coaching and with the right checkpoints and the external goals along the way.
Yeah, I think like with that, it's like it's very hard a lot of the time on your own to just see process orientated goals and outcome orientated goals like as separate and as one, because you just see like, oh, I need to get here. I need to be in shape. But what you actually need is kind of tangible success criteria along the process, which is, I'm sure, what you do. And it's definitely what I do. So you'll move through different phases in the journey or in that client's individual journey. And what they'll begin to realize is like, oh, I'm actually achieving something after a month. I'm achieving something after 2 months, instead of just seeing it as like, right, I actually think I need to lose 20 kilograms. That's going to take me like a year. Wow. Like a year is a long time. And then they talk themselves out of even dipping their feet in the water, because a year is a long time. It might not be for me and you, because we'll just be like, right, wake up at 5, do our cardio. But like,
oh, I don't see 5 o'clock, mate. There's only one 5 o'clock.
I can tell by the time of this Zoom, yeah. But I think like, yeah, just having ways of measuring the process and the outcome at smaller intervals, as opposed to, because we'll always look ahead, like we'll always like hypothesize, we'll speculate, and we'll worry about that, and that will always kind of impact our decision making in the now. So smaller goals, tick them off, and smaller process orientated goals as well, which is what you were getting at. Like, not necessarily like I've lost 3 kilograms, but I'm healthier, I feel better, my digestion's much improved, stuff like that. Like that will all flow and, like I said, snowball into long-term success.
Yeah, I think that every coach is always going to sell you the dream, sell you the end goal, because that's how sales and marketing works. We'll take you from where you're in pain to where you want to be, and we'll talk about that. And that is what I've certainly built a business on. And I don't think that we should discount that, because that inevitably, if you stick with it, is what we'll do. The part where I think a bit of a contentious thing, Ben, right, it's what I do, but I think that what you've got to consider is that we can't guarantee, or we don't know your starting point. So I can't tell you for sure, yes, I work typically in 28 days and 12 weeks, because it's tangible. It's something that you can see in front of you. When you start the 28-day challenge, it's fucking 28 days. You know when you're going to be done. The 12 weeks is the same. It creates deadlines and pressure and urgency. But the reality is that for every single person that works with me and or works with you, it's going to take a different amount of time to achieve their goals. The only thing we can guarantee is progress. And if you can try to see the habits and the processes behind it, progress is inevitable. It's just a case of when, not if. And that's what you've got to look at as a coach is, yes, they'll sell you the end goal, but make sure that they're very clear on, and this is what we're going to do to get there. Because if you don't, sometimes they're just, maybe you're not even going to do that much different from what you're doing now. And that's why you need to pick a coach that aligns with you, your values. They've got examples of people who's in a similar position, because then they will know the steps. As opposed to, like I mentioned at the beginning, some athletes, particularly in the bodybuilding world, yes, they get a good transformation, but they would have got that transformation year in, year out anyway. Me and you are going to get better each year because that's what we love doing. What will change is can we find someone who can specifically, for me, build my shoulders, make my calves bigger, work on my weak points? Can we get someone who can do it, you know, for you, where you're going to add so much muscle mass and you're going to be able to get even leaner, or whatever it is? They're the specifics that you should be asking about, not can they get you to the end point, because everyone's going to get there eventually, particularly when you're motivated like what we are, and when you're as disciplined as certainly what you are. Maybe it's not so much me, but when you get there, and it's understanding that each coach, it's the destination is the same. It's the sort of the methods that they'll use, and to some extent, the principles that are different. And I think everyone should spend some time before potentially working with a coach at maybe thinking about exactly what you are prepared and not prepared to do, and maybe what some of your non-negotiables are. So for me and Alex, a big thing is we both don't take gear. We're both natural. So in the past, I've worked with lots of people in the industry. Jordan Peters, I worked with him, fantastic coach, got on with him very well. But a big thing of his coaching was about taking steroids. So I remember when I was in uni working with him, and people might have heard of Jordan Peters, he's well known in the industry. I worked with him in uni for about a year, 6 months. I did learn a lot, but one of the disconcerting things about the check-in form was, despite me saying I'm natural, was every check-in form was really designed for people that were taking gear. How much test are you taking? What EQ? All these things. To me, fucking don't really understand any of it. But also, you know, from my point of view, is he the best coach to get the most?
You feel like you're missing out a bit on the coaching process, because like that's like 30-40% of the coaching process that you're not getting.
Exactly.
When you could be getting 40% from a natural guy who's talking about different things that do apply to you. Because like I think the worst thing you can do is just sign up with like a prep coach if you have no intention of prepping. Just because they've got someone shredded. It's like, it's not hard.
Exactly. I had someone message me the other day. I put a photo up, little thirst trap in a mirror, as you do when you lean. I was like, yeah. And someone messaged saying, fucking hell, like, oh, you're natural. And I was like, yeah, but I've trained a lot. I was like, obviously football when I was younger. I never miss. I train 4 times a week, every week, no matter what, all the time, if not more. So a lot of the time, twice a day. And I was like, you know, and the reason the guy asked was because he was taking gear, which is completely fine, by the way. And he mentioned the coach he was working with, and I actually said to him, look, and he said he wanted to change, like, you know, he wanted to change coaches. I was like, actually, I would probably stick with the coach you're working with, because it's not really something I can help you with. I've got people I can go and ask. I've got a good close friends and other coaches who I could lean on for support on that if someone really wanted to work with me but still take gear. But it's not probably going to be getting 100% out of my coaching. Or certainly, there's probably someone else who can give you more information on that area. And if you are taking gear, it almost comes in as nearly another third of what you do. And you've got your diet, your training, the rest of your life. Maybe another area that's coming in that I certainly anyway wouldn't really be able to give you 100% on.
And it's like a lot of responsibility that, because it's impacting your health. So like as a coach, I'm almost like, I don't know enough, and I don't want to be in charge of that really, because from a health standpoint, it's not for me. Because it's just impacting everything. But yeah, I think that's quite kind of moral of you to be like, look, I'm not the right guy for you. And some people won't do that. Some people will be like, oh yeah, crack on. In front of them. Yeah, they're just link in bio, like, yeah, go on, sign up for the film. I think just be careful, like just check it, just do your research on them.
Last one, bro. So as you can all see from talking, Alex is a very knowledgeable guy, but he actually has a very interesting story as to how he come to coaching. So what I want to talk about, Alex, is in any industry, I guess, a lot of people start a side hustle or start a passion, and then they eventually transition and build it into their main full-time job. So give a kind of the story of sort of what you're starting, because I think it's a cool story, and then how you've ended up coming to coaching now.
So, like I said, like I've always been drawn to fitness, and I have coached for a long time, albeit unofficial, when I was kind of in Leeds, when I moved back down here. But my main area that I worked in was education. So I trained and graduated as a primary school teacher. So during COVID, a great year, I was doing my PGCE year. So you could catch me on Microsoft Teams most of the day, giving high quality lessons to year sixes and little children as well. But whilst I was doing that, I was basically running a Project Sparks as a full-time business, on the side. So I was actually busiest during COVID somehow. It definitely picked up, like people had spare time. So there's a lot of home workout plans that had to be written on the weekend. So I was working Saturdays and Sundays were all of my check-ins for all of my online clients, so my one-to-one clients. And it came to a point where I needed to make a decision, really. Do I get the job after my PGCE year and commit to kind of continuing to run 2 jobs, because I wasn't going to stop Project Sparks because I prefer it, or do I postpone the teaching, because it will always be there, like people always need to learn how to write and stuff, so if you need to do that, I'm the guy for you. But I decided to go with Project Sparks, so I just managed to put the teaching on hold and pick up with Project Sparks full time, which is also stressful, but as you can imagine, it is great fun. But when I was doing it alongside my PGCE, it was all about time management, stress management, and really being productive with my time and not necessarily letting any minute go to waste, because obviously I was planning lessons. I was teaching from 8 till 4 with after school tuition. I had to train in there because that's a non-negotiable for me. And albeit I don't have the best social life, have a life outside of everything else. So it was quite a busy period, but we worked through it. And I think like one thing I learned from that is there'll be periods of your life where like it is really stressful and it is really full on, but that's all part of the process. And you just got to roll with the punches in that sense, and kind of it will work out and it will even out in the end. Like just like your body finds homeostasis, like your life will eventually find like its natural homeostasis, and then you can kind of reap the rewards of that, which is good. But yeah, education.
Something I thought would be good asking me. I know for me, everyone knows I was at Edge. I was running Edge and a very small, albeit small part owner in that, doing PT and running online at the same time. Fuck me, I didn't sleep a lot. But I think it moved my body clock. That's why I'm such a night owl now, I think, because I used to finish work at the gym. I used to train. I used to like to train 4 or 5 o'clock back then, sometimes later. Then I would get home, stay up. I would normally start work for my online stuff at about 8, 9, and then work through until about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and then go to bed, get up for PT at normally 5:30, 6. And anyone who knows me knows I fucking hate mornings. So the fact I would even get up at that time, I think my first client, particularly Edge, Kieran Brady, I think his sole job was just to get me through the first 20 minutes of the day, and I used to just be there like fucking angry at life. And then about halfway through, I would kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm awake now, and I'd be my normal self and chirpy.
Magic coffee, yeah.
Yeah, but I was fucked in the morning. But what I want to say, bro, what I'm getting at here is I had some metrics, some targets in my head. You might have heard things before. People say, you know, you shouldn't leave your side hustle. You shouldn't leave your main job until your side hustle's, 80% of the monetary value, if you like. Did you use anything like that? Do you have any sort of tangible targets that people could say if there's lads listening, they've got a side business or they're thinking, when is the right time to jump? How did you make that decision? Did you go purely off passion? Did you have some idea, I need this many clients? How did you do it?
There was always kind of that monetary idea in my head, but the thing with the monetary thing is, like, in most cases at the start, time does equal money, and I didn't have enough time to necessarily, for example, let's say I wanted to match teaching salary. That was always the kind of thing that for me that was like, right, if I'm not going to be a teacher, I need to match the teaching salary at least.
Yeah.
But there wasn't enough hours in a day for me to do that if I did the teaching. So I had to make the decision, right, do I free up Monday to Friday, and arguably my weekends, because teaching is not just kind of Monday to Friday, 3 p.m. clock off. Do I free up that time, and then I can literally compound? And what I found is when I made that decision, it compounded a lot, because obviously I then have time for marketing. I have time for my actual clients to do an even better job, because if you do a good job, people will stay, and then they will refer people, and it just works out in a better kind of equilibrium in a sense. And I just found that I had that monetary goal, but I think sometimes a monetary goal can be quite detrimental to kind of how you operate, because it removes like the quality of your service, because you're very focused on kind of, right, I just need another client, but what about your clients? And I think one of the biggest things during the pandemic was I focused on the clients I had and the service and the coaching experience they got. And then that really did improve my business because I got better reviews, I got testimonials, and people like seeing people do things like you do with your transformations. And at the end of the 28 days and 12-week programs, people like seeing people like them do it. So if I'm getting great results, I can then get even better results with different people. But yeah, it was a mixture of kind of a monetary goal and just jumping in. Like I said, I'd always been drawn back to fitness. I'd always had it there. And it's like, how long can I actually ignore this before it just kind of really does annoy me to a point where I'm hating what I'm actually doing every day of every week, looking forward to the gym session, looking forward to my client check-ins, as opposed to teaching. And arguably in teaching, that's not necessarily fair because I'm dealing with children. Yeah, and in my head, I was like, I'm sure there's someone who loves teaching, just like lives and breathes it. Like I live and breathe squat patterns. Like they will be better placed to teach these children. I'm not saying I'm a bad teacher, but like you get my idea. Like my passion is somewhere else. So I'm thinking about it while I'm teaching phonics.
Yeah. I think it's always best. I used to always say, and I've always stuck by, if you aim to be the best at what you do, then money will follow you kind of thing. You don't need to worry so much about I just think for financial security, some people like these, like you said, as for you matching your teacher salary. For me, it was matching sort of, what I was fortunate because it kind of all tied in. Yes, I was running a gym and had a salary from that, but I was lucky in that at least my time in the gym was still kind of further in my experience in my side hustle, if you like. So the link that made it certainly easier for me. But yeah, if you aim to be the best and if you're really passionate and curious about what you're doing, I think it's certainly something that I'm really practicing now, is still encouraging myself to be curious about coaching and still listening to podcasts and bodybuilding, because I've done it that long and I've got that much of kind of like set in some ways, certainly not with a result, but business-wise, I mentioned you before the call in terms of how the systems work and what we do, it's pretty much set. But I still love coaching and want to be better at that. And I like have different periods working on different things. Lately, it's been more the psychology and the why and understanding why people do stuff. The early years was more about the science, but then it's still even now going back and picking podcasts and picking books and trying to continue to be curious and learn and want to be the best. And that'll always see you through and making sure your further learning and your education continues throughout. You're never going to have completely made it or be at a point where you don't need to keep learning. I think that's why, certainly for me, why I love coaching, why I love natural bodybuilding and everything and training that we're doing, because it changes every year. There's always something new that we could be doing. You feel like you're never going to get to that 100%, which I actually like. And I think that any career, really, any passion, I think that's always going to be the case because you change, the world changes. So just always keep trying to find that next 1%, 2%, or 3% or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even if that 1%, 2%, 3% isn't applicable to kind of your clients, but it might be applicable to one client.
Yeah. And
then you've made a difference, you've had impact. And then likewise, you continue to learn, this will be applicable to this client who's struggling with their relationship with food. Like for example, that's something I'm working on at the moment with one client. So I'm therefore reading and listening to all the podcasts I can on that topic to try and improve the outcomes for that client. And I think like there's so many different kind of pathways you can go down. It's just great.
Fantastic. Right. Last bit, the legendary quickfire round. So,
let's have it.
Got 8 questions, 4 easy, then 4 a little bit harder where you can take your time a little bit more. So just go with what first comes into your head. Are you ready?
Yes,
cool.
mate.
So first one, online or in-person PT?
Online.
Evident for both of us, I guess. This next one, I'm not sure what you're going to say on this next one. Deadlifts or squats?
Deadlifts.
Do you still do touch and go deadlifts?
Yes.
Oh. God. It's my pet here.
Stimulus to fatigue ratio, mate.
I know.
Look it up.
I know.
But my touch and go deadlifts are not touch and go. Because arguably I'm doing a pause where I literally caress the mat and then I pick it up again.
Oh, I know why you do it. I'm just not a fanny. I see if you're doing it, I just go. It just makes us.
It is 235 kilograms though.
Hey mate, you've got a good deadlift. What's your squat now? What do you squat now?
190 for 8. I did during lockdown.
That's really good. Tall lad as well, like I said, for a big lad.
Yeah. That was in the garage of Gaines, so that was just pure testosterone in that garage.
Next one: carbs or protein?
Carbs.
Ooh, I think I'm more of a protein guy.
Protein sparing, so you don't have to eat as much protein.
That's true. 4: stay in or go out?
Stay in. Got to get out for cardio.
Right, the last 4, a little bit more considerate, I guess. I ask everyone these 4 questions. What is the worst place you've ever visited?
Burnham-on-Sea.
That was. Are you just gonna go with the?
Just it's just mud, isn't it? Like, what is the point of a place like that?
The other side of that, the best place you've ever visited.
New York.
Sick. I like New York.
Pretty generic, but I had a good experience in New York. Yeah, New Year's Eve, decent. Times Square.
What is the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
Fitness or life?
It's up to you.
No carbs after 6. I think that actually ruined my life for like 10 years.
Really? And then lastly, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Don't think, do.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because you just learn, man. You just learn so much. And for someone like me, who loves to think, I would never do. So sometimes I just got to do and then think about it as I'm doing it. But yeah, don't think, do. I think Mo Samuel says that a lot, actually. So maybe I've pulled that from him. But
I like that.
That's a good one.
Sick.
You don't need that because you're quite spontaneous, like, as you know, being in Barcelona at the moment.
I'm more of a, I don't know, I'm weird. I'm quite rigid in some ways. I'm sure people spend a lot of time with say I've got some things I'm very fixed on, and then other things I literally just decide on. Like for me, my meal times and stuff, I just go, I know that I'm going to eat every 3 to 4 hours, but I'm not like that fixed on it anymore. But I think that's because, and this is where these things change, why I like to ask everyone, is that I was so rigid, really, really, really rigid and set on times when I was in uni and when I was younger, that I've kind of like learned what works best for me, and then it changes a little bit. And I think that spontaneity and learning to go with the flow has been a massive one with me for probably since COVID, really, because I had so much planned. And then now kind of just thinking, I'm in Barcelona and then Switzerland, Argentina, wherever, but not plan it too much, because if you plan too much, you end up thinking about the plan as opposed to just enjoying where you're at.
Enjoy the moment, and
that goes back to what we're saying with coaching as well, is that if we're just thinking about plans and we're thinking about the end goal, we're wishing away time, and that applies to everything in life, really. So keeping it present, staying present, thinking about being is always a good piece of advice. So, right, Alex, tell everyone where they can find you. Let's sort of round off.
So Alex Project Sparks on Instagram. That's one of my main platforms. Alex Project Sparks on YouTube. Putting a big plan to YouTube at the moment. So I've got a peak week vlog coming out, and then show day, and then Ibiza vlog, because I am that guy. And then www.projectsparks.com if you want to look at my kind of testimonials and read any blogs or apply for coaching. But yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. Awesome. Right, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, all the normal stuff. It's been an absolute blast. Thanks, bro.
You've been listening to Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread the word.